Hello there. In this video, I am thrilled to be able to reveal the successful acquisition of a couple of web assets that I have been very keen for Azam Marketing to own for many years now. With one of them, I have been trying to buy it for 4 years, and the other one for 10 years, believe it or not. To give you an insight into the backdrop to the story very briefly, for those of you who have been part of Azam Marketing's journey and following us over quite a while, you'll know that we used to own the domain name azam.com. We owned that in the noughties and had a number of offers to buy it over many years. 2003, 2004, 2005, but we were not willing to sell it because it's obviously the best domain name it's possible to have for the brand Azam. Lo and behold, in 2006, we received a very generous offer, let's just call it, to buy the domain name. I was still reticent to sell it, but Azam Marketing at that time wasn't as successful as it went on to become, and I needed the revenues from the sale of the domain name in order to be able to fund company costs and our expansion plans. I had a growing team of staff whose salaries needed to be paid. So very sadly, I let my head rule my heart, and I agreed to sell the domain name. We then migrated on to using azam.net for our company website and azam.info for our blog. However, there was always a missing piece of our jigsaw as a result of that sale. And so in the years that followed on from that, I always wanted to acquire the best possible domain names related to the Azam brand. For those of you who know your domain names and maybe have been around the block, you'll know that the original triumvirate of global TLDs, top level domains, was .com, .net, and .org. So these were considered to be the most desirable TLDs to have domain names within. We'd obviously sold azam.com, azam.net we were using for our corporate website. And so the one that I decided to set my sights on was .org. However, there was an issue. Azam.org had been bought by a gentleman by the name of Omar Azam in the year 2000. He was using it to host a website, and so I tried to contact him. I would email him and say, hey, would you be willing to sell this for a reasonable price, of course? And he replied to me saying, no. He was using it for his website, it was his surname, and there was no way whatsoever he was going to sell it to me. I was very dejected, of course, but what I did was I continued to email him every year or so. So I would shoot off an email to him saying, hey, how about you, consider selling the domain name to me now. And more often than not, he wouldn't even reply to me. But once I emailed him a few times, the gap of a few days between each email, I think he would get a bit annoyed and eventually send me a rather stroppy email, a one-liner saying, leave me alone. Like I've told you many times before, I'm not willing to sell the domain name. Obviously, the rejections would demoralize me, but that didn't stop me from diarizing to contact Omar again in another 365 days' time. And I persisted with emailing him every single year throughout the 2010s and constantly kept getting his rejections. There was quite a journey which I won't go into, and a number of further hoops to jump through, but I am ecstatic to reveal that the owner of Azam.org is Azam Marketing. Alongside Azam.org, there's another domain name that I've had my eye on for an extremely long time. It's the shortest possible domain name it's possible to have within the Azam brand. Can you guess what it is? Well, using the Armenian country TLD, which is .am, it is az.am. As with Azam.org, the issue was that since day dot, this had been owned by somebody else, and in the case of this particular domain name, it was actually the owner of one of the Armenian registrars. So he knew his beans. He knew the value of a 2-character domain name beginning with an A. Whenever I would email him, he would send me his usual response requesting his fixed mountainful of dollars amount of money for selling the domain name to us. The domain name was one that I wanted to have because it would be amazing for Azam Marketing, but it wasn't that desirable to me that I was willing to sell an arm and a leg for it. So I would try and consider other strategies to somehow or other persuade him to sell it to me. I'd contact him once every few months using a variety of different stratagem to somehow persuade him and sweet talk him into transferring the domain name to me for a reasonable price. I kept persisting with that, and then, hey ho, thank God, one day he finally agreed to sell the domain name, and for what was a fair sum of money. Even then, we had obstacle after obstacle, the most bizarrest of which was in terms of a dispute there was between two rival nations. So, like I said, .am is the TLD for Armenia. Now, those of you who know your geopolitics will be aware that Armenia has a neighbor who's a bit of a rival to them, let's just say. This is a country that they have been at war with twice since 1918. Once in the 1918 to 1922 period, and then again from 1988 to 1994. Even more recently, in just 2016, there was a battle over the disputed region of Nagorno-Karabakh, and that resulted in the death between the two sides of 350 civilians and military personnel. So there's no love lost between these two countries. They're actually technically still at war with each other. So which domain name has the TLD for both Armenia and Azerbaijan in it? For our luck, AZ, Azerbaijan, am.am, Armenia. So I had to convince the relevant bodies that this domain name was not going to be used for any purposes that would be detrimental to Armenia or would be pushing the Azerbaijani cause in terms of their dispute with Armenia. And I had to attest to that in writing. So a truly Kafkaesque situation. Who would ever imagine that a digital agency based in central London would have to attest to documentation that they wouldn't have an involvement between rivalry between two countries in the Caucasus, thousands of miles away. But that's the way of the world. The long and the short of it is, guess who owns az.am now? I'm ecstatic beyond belief to say it's Azam Marketing. az.am belongs to us. It proves both with azam.org and az.am that it's possible to make the nigh impossible possible. All you require is relentless confidence and persistence. There's very many qualities that other people possess bountifully that I lack. I have very many deficiencies, too many to tell. But the one that people have commented on throughout my life is my dogged pursuit of goals and my unwillingness to accept failure as an option. Now, obviously, that's subject to certain proviso. The goals have got to be realistic and achievable, and you've got to go into the pursuit with a level head, but never, ever, ever accept defeat. An example of one of the cases where I have been persistent is with a retailer. This was a company that contacted Azam Marketing several years ago saying they were interested in us boosting their sales. They were a decent sized retailer of home furnishings here in the United Kingdom. So my team and I went through the usual pitch process, the 60, 70 page PowerPoint to show them what we could do for them and send them case studies of the results that we had produced for other retailers. However, they were umming and ahhing and kept asking us questions like few other potential clients have done. Question after question after question. And even after we answered them, they were not willing to go forward. A few months down the line, the lead went cold and anybody else would have given up at that point. What I did was I kept contacting them. Every few weeks, I would email them, telephone them. And I kept doing that, not just for weeks, not just for months, but for years. And to cut a long story short, believe it or not, they came on board with Azam Marketing as a client. Finally, after me pursuing them for 6 years. 6 years. So I have the unenviable record, I'm sure, of the longest close in UK online marketing history. And I'm pleased to report that we went on to be able to drive quite a number of sales for them. So it was all worth it. One of the figures in history who's most associated with the qualities of tenacity and persistence is one that I imagine most of you have heard of. He's somebody who actually made a video about, which you can find on my YouTube channel if you take a look to the videos from a few years ago. His name is Thomas Alva Edison, the American entrepreneur and inventor. When he was suffering criticism at not being successful in being able to create a long-lasting version of his light bulb, and people were criticizing him, he replied to them as follows. I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work. I'll end this video and leave you with a small request, if I may. Since I've been working on the internet in the 1990s, one of my favorite websites, which was launched in 1999, has been the Hunger website. What it does is it donates money to worthwhile causes. It was originally hunger and poverty alleviation only, but in the intervening 21 plus years, they have expanded out into a whole variety of good causes. This includes things like diabetes and dementia, Alzheimer's and autism, helping the rainforest, wildlife, breast cancer, and so on and so forth. And the exceptional thing about this website is you do not have to donate a single penny from your own pocket. You don't have to give your debit or credit card details. You don't have to register or fill in a single form field. All you have to do is go to their website and click on a button, a donate button, and off the back of that, they will donate a small amount of money to a cause that you feel is important to you, or multiple causes if you look around their website and go to the relevant sections. The way they make their money in order to be able to make these donations is from their sponsors and advertisers. So if you go to their website, you'll notice quite a number of advertisements on all these web pages. And it may even be worthwhile for you to click through to those advertisers and buy from them, because that will encourage them to continue to advertise on the Hunger site. Ever since Azam Marketing took over az.am, we have redirected that domain name to the Hunger website, as it's one that I feel very passionate in supporting. And so if you want to visit the Hunger website, a very simple way of doing so is by going to az.am. What I'll actually try and do is include a link to that in the copy next to this video, so you can just click through to the Hunger site. And I'll keep the link up to the Hunger website from az.am, the redirect, for at least a couple of months. So what you could even do is bookmark az.am, and then you'll be able to visit the Hunger website on a regular basis and donate to their brilliant causes. Thank you very much for watching this video. Remember the value of persistence. I'll leave you with literally one sentence from Gena Showalter. As she says, giving up is the only sure way to fail. Sounds very simplistic, but focus on the words and you'll see how profound they are. Thanks once again, and have a brilliant day. Ciao!